I feel alone, my Abba. Here on this road, my Abba. A long way from home I've traveled. Lord, I just need your light. Where have I gone, my Father? I sing the song, my Father. Your love I will chase after. Lord, I just need your light. I feel alone, my Abba. Here on this road, my Abba. A long way from home I've traveled. Lord, I just need...
It's not as satisfactory. Like it satisfacting? No, not satisfactory as it was.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I could not think of the word. Sorry.
Yeah, I keep hitting that other one. But
they're gonna just go black, and it's like, what is happening?
If y'all don't know, I still gotta get Michael in here so he can do the switching. Come on, Mike. Yeah, come on, Michael. What are you doing? But yeah, I've been my hands right here doing it. But yeah,
you know what would be a great podcast? Mm-hmm. Come in here like on a Friday night and do. Now you would obviously need like mics and stuff, but do like you talk about a nightly devotional. Do a nightly devotional with the bros.
Ooh,
that'd be sick.
I've been wanting to get them on here too. We just got to find a time, but that's a great idea for sure.
I have great ideas sometimes. there's some thoughts that go to the old noggin every once in a while.
Yeah, but to kind of piggyback on what you said, how it's not like it's like a puffing out chest type of thing when you say my fiance, like it's not like
that was smooth. Hey, that was good.
Like it's not like Superman. I honestly that's actually, and I have a follow up question after that too. But that's actually a good thing because it's just one of those things where I think a lot of people define their relationships based on the title.
That is definitely. I mean, maybe Kaylee feels that way, but that is definitely not how like. I truly love this person, and there is no, to your point, like there is no title. Like I love them. I love Kaylee when she was my girlfriend. I love her more, and I think that there's a lot of growth that happens when you're fiancés, and there's a lot of, and what people don't realize is like there's a lot of. It's a kind of a trying time. Getting prepared for a wedding is stressful. Yeah. And so yes, we grow a lot, but yeah, it's not one of those things where we're defined by a title.
Yeah. And it obviously, me personally, I think a lot of other people, especially those who, are believers, the goal is marriage, but at the end of the day, marriage is the coming together of, two people to become one. And if you fall in love more with the title of marriage than the person, then that's a whole issue. It's like it becomes an idol. You idolize the idea of marriage 100%. Instead of loving the person.
100%. And I cannot overstate that enough. That marriage to me is not something that I've had a childhood dream on. Marriage to me now is I love Kaylee and have loved Kaylee for such a long time that I want to spend the rest of my life, God willing, with her. And don't get me wrong, especially I think for guys, I think that there's a lot of anxieties, especially for me, and this is my personal struggle of I have a lot of anxieties of Kaylee was always the first one that she was the first one who mentally said, I love you. The first one who was ready to get engaged, where I was always the one who was slow behind her. A lot of people I'm always kind of looked at when I say this, but we didn't say I love you to each other until we started dating in May. I didn't say it until December.
Really?
Yeah. So we didn't say I love you until 6 months into our relationship.
Yeah.
But it was I've always had that kind of anxiety about I don't want to move forward too fast.
Yeah.
Because I've got burned by that in the past, and you get hurt by that, and so I think that I think that it's been one of those things where I can't even remember where I was going with that, but I love Kaylee. That's it. I can't. I really lost it about halfway through, and I was trying to salvage it. And I don't know if this happens to you, but this happens to me all the time in teaching, where I'm like, all right, we just got to keep talking, and it's going to come back to us at some point. It never came back to me, so I was just like, we might as well just cut our losses and move on.
Yeah, but that's honestly a perfect segue into the question that I wanted to ask you. I think a lot of, especially guys, I think a lot of, women too, but I think a lot of guys, I hear some of their stories and stuff, and they talk about how, some guys, they knew that, their wife was the one when they met her, or some of them talk about, there was a moment when they knew. I guess for you, when did you know that Kaylee was, the person that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with?
All right. So that's a great question. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's bullcrap.
Really?
I personally think that I truly subscribe to the philosophy that a soulmate is made. Like, you have to work hard. And I think that, don't get me wrong, I think that there are people who are like that, who find love at first sight. I was not that way. I think that when I realized that Kaylee was the one, so when I realized probably if we got engaged in July, I probably realized that I was probably going to propose probably in like January or February of last year. And I knew that was probably something that I wanted to do. I don't know exactly. There wasn't a moment. Like, to me, that epitomizes my love and my relationship throughout the entire year. Like through my entire relationship with Kaylee. To me, there was never a singular moment where it was like a light bulb moment of, that's it. That's where it is. I do remember that there was somewhat similar of a light bulb moment of when I found out, or when I realized that I might be in love with this girl. Like, that was if I said I love you in December, I probably said that I was thinking it in November. Yeah. But there wasn't a singular time where I was like, you know what, this is the one person that I absolutely want to spend my life with. It was just kind of a progression, and there's nothing wrong with the people who have that one moment. Yeah. But one of my biggest critiques, and I think that and I truly believe this, that everybody's love is different. And I think that you might have that 1 in a million moment where you lock eyes from across the room and you guys absolutely fall in love and it goes from there. Yeah. You might have that. But I think that type of love is seen in movies. And like I said, some people have it, some people don't. But like, I think that a lot of times it's preached in movies, when in actuality, like, a lot of love, and I would say that most love in relationships is a gradual process of you love them more and more and more and more and more. But it's not like a singular, it's not a linear thing sometimes. Like, and I think that that's one of the other things that I think that people sometimes get wrong, is that, like, there's hills and valleys. And so there's, obviously, I never stop loving Kaylee, but there's some times where we go through a rough patch and then you go back up again, and then you rectify it and stuff like that. And one thing that me and Kaylee do a really good job of is, if we do feel like we're not communicating correctly, or because that's where a lot of the stuff comes from in relationships, by the way, in case you didn't know. But like, if there is something, we try to rectify it that day. Yeah. And I think that has helped a lot, because I think that if you let it go on for 1 or 2 or 3 days, then I think that it could fester into something that could be cataclysmic. It could be explosive. And so that's where I think that, like, if there's single people talking or single people watching, like, it may not be like it is in the movies. It may not be a singular moment where where it's like, oh, yep, that's it. She's the one. Because I'm going to be honest with you. She doesn't want me to talk about this. But, like,
Sorry, Caleb.
Yeah, so there was one girl who, Shane Rich, right? This is never going to go out. But, like, there was a person at Shane Rich's wedding who I thought was so pretty. And I thought that it was the romantic, like, oh, I was the best man at Shane's wedding. I'm at my best friend's wedding, and I fall in love with this girl. And we ended up talking for a little while, but it ended up not working out. And so it was one of those things where it was like, oh, well, that I thought she was the one. She wasn't. But like the way that it's seen in these rom-coms, a lot of times it's like, oh, yep, she's it. She's the one. Like you see her across the bar and she's looking at someone else and you're like, yep, that's my future wife right there. And it's like, no, bro, it's not. She's looking at the dude across just like behind you. I don't know what you doing, bro. But yeah, that's kind of my thing. But I hope that answered your question.
No, yeah, it does. And that, I think that helps out, some people who are listening and even myself, because I'm the type of person where that's something that I valued for a long time and I've wanted and desired for a long time. And I've gotten better now. It used to be more of like a idol type of thing, but God has worked on me and helped me to overcome that way of thinking. And so, but at the same time, I do think that helps, because a lot of people could be waiting for like some perfect moment where God opens the skies and he's like, thou shalt marry thy wife or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's huge what you said. Like there is in Kaylee will say the same thing about me. I will say the same thing about Kaylee. Your mom will say probably the same thing about your dad. My mom will say the same thing about my dad. Like, there is no perfect person in this world.
Yeah.
There was one guy. He died. He's rose again. Shout out to Jesus, my homeboy. But, like, there is no perfect person. And so, like, I think that everybody is like, oh, well, my perfect person is hit. Like, you see the TikToks all the time of he's 6'3". He makes over 130,000 a year. Like, he has the best personality. And it's like, bro, like, that's not how things work. Yeah. And so, like people have flaws. People have personality flaws, physical flaws. It's really about, love is about, do you overlook those flaws? And does what they bring to your life overshadow those flaws? Yeah. And I think that's huge. And that's how I personally feel. Yeah, because I'm sure that there's so many flaws that Kaylee has, and she's like, "Yeah, I love him anyway." Don't know why, but hey, shout out.
And I agree with that, bro. Because when you're like you said, there not only is there no perfect person, but there's also no perfect time.
Yeah,
because you could be waiting your whole life for a moment. Next thing you know, and next thing you know. There's been so much time and you've been waiting so long for this perfect moment, when in reality, this person may have been in your face the whole time and you don't even realize it. Or, you need to, I don't want to break people up, but maybe you've been waiting for somebody who, and this isn't talking about flaws in terms of like, height or things you can't control. I'm talking now, there's flaws and then there's red flags.
Yeah.
And if you're waiting for this person to change or get over some of those red flags and they're not putting in the work, they're not trying to change, but you're waiting for that perfect moment, you could be missing out on somebody else who may not be perfect or may not meet your quote unquote requirements, but they would be good for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want you to, and this is another thing that I want to tell people. Like, I also don't think that, you said there's not a perfect person, there's not a perfect time, and I agree with you 100%. but there's not a perfect feeling either. And I think that a lot of people are addicted to emotions, and they're looking for that butterfly, that butterfly in the stomach and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I don't like. I'm going to see Kaylee after this in just a little bit. And like, I'm not going to be like, oh, butterflies in the stomach like we did when we were a month in. Now, to me, love is not the butterfly in the stomach. To me, love is a comfort that I would rather talk to Kate and just love you to death. But there is nobody on this planet that I would rather talk about my day with than Kaylee. Nobody on this planet.
And that's good, man.
And it's about, for me at least, there's a comfort that people, and I don't know, like, I don't know if you've seen TikToks about this, but people always are like, oh, like my husband, whenever he's around me, he falls asleep. Like, and to me, that's like the perfect sign. Now, obviously, if you're just starting to date and they're falling asleep on you, maybe that's not the best. But like if because I'm so comfortable around Kaylee, and that comfort is almost like it almost puts me to sleep how comfortable I am that we don't. And that's the thing too. And I'm sorry that I keep going all over the place.
Good,
but like. A full relationship. And I'm not talking about early stages. I'm talking about advanced stages of a relationship. It's okay not to be talking to each other. And I'll tell you, and for an extrovert like me, that was a hard thing and still a hard thing to wrap my head around. Because we talked about it at the beginning of this podcast. Like, I love deep conversations. Yeah. And that doesn't just extend to you. Like, that doesn't extend to Avery. Like, that extends to Kaylee too. That, like, I love these deep conversations. But at a certain point, and I'm a big question guy. You know this. We've said, like, you've seen it on the podcast. But, like at a certain point, you run out of like surface level stuff to talk about. Exactly. You know their favorite color. You know their favorite candy. Now, do I forget sometimes? Yes. Do I have a note on my phone of Kaylee's favorite things? Yes. But like it's, hey, sometimes you forget. Okay.
Sorry.
We don't see you. People always view me as the bad guy for that, but we don't live together. So it's not like, it's not like we see each other every single day. Yeah, so like a lot of times right now, like I see Kaylee Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there are some times where it's even Friday, Saturday, and no time during this Friday, Saturday do we go to a gas station. And I'm like, what do you want to eat, babe? And she's like, oh, you know my favorite snack. And it's like, no, that doesn't happen that much. So like you forget some stuff. You forget. But I think that like love is, I know it's a paradox, but I think that love is simple but complex. I think that it's simple in that you know whether, or I always say, and this goes to the complex, I'll get to the simple part in a second. Mm-hmm. Like I always ask people 3 questions if they're ever thinking about breaking up with someone. Number 1, is your life better or worse without them? Yeah. If it's better off without them, that's you need to break it up. Yeah. Point number 2. Do you love them? Like, and if you love them and you haven't, obviously once again, it's not, love is not this warm fuzzy feeling. And especially when you get into a long relationship, you don't necessarily have to love them. Like love is not something that happens every single time. And I think that a lot of times people have this misconception about love. Yeah. But if you don't love them at all, then it might be time. And I'm going to be honest with you, and this is going to make you laugh. I like doing things in things of 3, but I couldn't remember what the third one is. So I don't remember what the third one that I asked people is. I should have wrote this down when I thought of it, because when I think of it, it's really when I think of it, I'll text it to you. But, But it's always one of those things where, like, if you don't like talking to your other person, your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, husband, whatever, like, then that might be time for you to wrap it up. And and I think that there's a difference, and I feel like I'm rambling on at this point, but like, I think that there's a difference between being comfortable with them and being comfortable with the situation. And I think that a lot of times people are not comfortable with the person. If anything, they're on eggshells with this person, but they're comfortable with the situation that they're in. And so they drag it out. They drag an inevitable relationship that's going to end at some point. They drag it out for 6 months or a year or 2 years, or in some instances, they never break up. And it's not that they love them. It's, if anything, they're growing more resentment towards them, but they're so comfortable with the situation.
Yeah, man.
And I'm going to be honest with you, and the comfort into the situation, I think that, and we don't have to talk about this too much, like in terms of deepness, but like, I think that that's one of the downfalls sometimes of the church, is that they look down so much about divorce that in a pure Christian relationship, there's, in my opinion, and you might disagree, and we can have this conversation, but like, in my opinion, I think that people can move on, and everybody's supposed to evolve. And there's sometimes where I might evolve and Kaylee might not evolve, and Kaylee will probably evolve to match my level of evolution or whatever it is. But like, if people aren't evolving, I think that they can kind of fall out of love. And divorce, like, I'm not saying that divorce needs to be the number one, like 50% of divorces is crazy. And I think that part of that is because we try to get married too quickly. But I think that you don't want to be in a bad situation forever. And like, I think that if you know that it's going to end, even if you are like, even if you're married and even if you have kids, like, there might be a time where doing what's best for you and doing what's best for your family might be cutting the snake's head off, you know? And so that's kind of just how I feel about it.
Yeah. And so that was a lot, bro. I
didn't mean to go that much.
No, I'm not saying it in a bad way. I definitely want to touch on the last part that you said too. But a couple things that you were saying before about how there's no perfect feeling. You know, something I think I've told my sister this before, but something I like to say is, like, you know, you were talking about the butterflies, and eventually a butterfly is going to fly away. Yeah. And so if you're only liking somebody or only with somebody because of that butterfly feeling, there's going to be times where you may not like the person in a specific moment. They may do something that gets on your nerves. You know, are you willing to work through that? So yeah, eventually those butterflies are going to fly away. And what is your foundation going to be once that happens? And are you both going to, you know, do work, have conversations, communicate to get back to the point where, you know, y'all can, you know, go work through the different seasons and relationships. The other thing was, it just slipped my mind. What was it? It was something that you mentioned. Do
you know what part of the inner monologue that it was? Like, you want to talk about it? I talked about a dissertation. Maybe that was the dissertation. That was my love dissertation.
Yeah, but yeah, that was all good, man. And kind of, it'll come back to me. But touching on the last part that you said, and disclaimer, I'm single. I don't even have a girlfriend. So
can you touch my? You hear that? Hey, boys, single, ready to mingle. So somebody snatch that man up. Like, hit the inbox. what is it called now?
The Reclassified Ministries.
The Reclassified Ministries. Hey, hit my boy up. All right, you can go back now.
I tell you, my DMs are open. My DMs are open. It just because it's a ministry page does not mean that I do not see.
I want you to know, if you meet your future wife, hey, there's no perfect story, but if you meet your future wife through a DM on the Reclassified Ministries page, I will lose my mind.
Yeah, man. But yeah. So like I was saying, I'm single. Kind of like you before, Kaylee. I haven't been in a long relationship. I've only been in one relationship, and even that was pretty short. Obviously, never been married, so I can only share this from experiences, through others, not myself. So to touch on the last thing that you were talking about, I agree that there needs to be more conversations around marriage and things like that within the church. Obviously, I think Jesus talks on divorce. Paul may touch on it in the epistles. I'm not too familiar with everything in those scriptures. It's tough because, and I'm not even, this isn't even talking about physical abuse, emotional abuse, anything like that. Obviously, when it comes to that, you got to be safe. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You got to be safe.
Yeah.
There's no choice. Like, you got to be safe. You got to get people around you, because I don't think God would have someone in a situation in a marriage where, or would want somebody in a marriage where they're just being abused every single day of their life.
Yeah.
Now, with the different nuances and everything, let's say there's like irreconcilable differences. This is going to be tough to say, bro. But
rip it off like a Band-Aid.
I think irreconcilable differences is more about one of us or both of us just decided to stop growing and evolving.
Yeah. I agree.
And
or to the other end of the spectrum, somebody wants you, and I think that this is huge. People want, I had the thought, but I'm kind of losing it.
Yeah.
So people have this idea of when you first met, but as you grow, you're not going to be that same person.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of times, not only do people stop looking forward, but people are fixated on looking backwards. And they want that person who they were at the beginning of the relationship, whereas that person is not the same. Me 5 years ago is not the same person that I am now. Me at the beginning of the relationship is not the person that I am now. And so, I think that kind of goes hand in hand, that not only do they stop looking forward or moving forward, they're fixated on backwards. And I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And that can be a bad thing, because you look at kind of like what we're talking about with the butterflies. Oh, the butterflies aren't there anymore. It's not going to be the same. It's going to change from, the puppy love stage to the married stage, and even, kids coming in. And so when I like to think about it like this, the marriage, the perfect picture of marriage is Jesus and the church. And, the way I like to think about it is, let's say there's a couple who's married and there's somebody who doesn't like their spouse, doesn't love their spouse anymore because they're not, the same person that they were when they got married. First off, think about it like this. What does it say? Romans 5:6. For when we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. So Jesus Jesus died for us while we were in at our worst, as sinners.
Yeah.
And, when we come to Christ, we're ingrained into the church, and we're, his bride. Jesus, we're the bride of Christ as the church. And Jesus never stops loving us regardless of, how we evolve, things that he has us in, how we change and stuff. And obviously not like sinful things, but, we as a people evolve, but Jesus never stops loving us.
Yeah.
And so the irreconcilable differences thing to me is not really portraying a picture of Jesus in the church, because you should come in with the understanding that, yes, we're going to change. Yes, we're going to grow. Yes, we're going to evolve over time. But when you marry somebody, you're marrying them as a person. You're not marrying you're marrying them. You're not marrying a version of them. You're not marrying the past version of them.
You're marrying them, whatever 0.0 that it becomes.
Yeah.
That you're marrying the evolution of them. You're marrying not who they're going to be, not who they were in the past. You're marrying them at that point in time. Now, I do have 2 points that I want to explain.
Yeah.
Number one, I think that the church needs to redefine, or not redefine, but they need to put into perspective what marriage does. Because I think that the way that church treats marriage leads people to get married too fast. And when people get married too fast, because I think that marriage they teach great, but I think that they don't understand the importance of dating. Because dating apparently,
that's good.
like apparently you know more than me, but I don't even think that dating's really talked about in the Bible. And so
I don't think
so.
it is.
People don't talk about it. People don't explain it. But I also think, and this is my second point, that not only should you not like make marriage go way too fast, but you also need to preach the importance of singleness. And I think that singleness is what happened?
No, that's keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just
So, well, I don't know what's happening. My man Gabe is over here acting up. He looks like he's about to come out of my seat right now. So I think that the importance of singleness isn't talked about enough in the church. And I think that obviously, like, Paul was single, like, from my understanding. I think Paul was single.
He was, yeah.
But, like, and that doesn't take away his reputation. I think that obviously people look to marriage, but marriage isn't a requirement to be a good Christian.
Yeah.
Or a good person for that matter. BT dubs. But yeah, that's kind of what I love the church, but I think that the current version of the church a lot of times is for older people who are married. And so the younger people who aren't married or are single or are dating or are even engaged, that they're always looking to marriage as an idol that you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And the reason why I was doing all that is because the last message that I shared this past week, one of the points that I had was, well, the basis of the message was that the new creation life gives you no choice but to lose. And so that was the title of the message. And then my points were you must lose your life in order to live, which that's another conversation for another day, because I know that can get confusing. I'm not talking about actually dying, but there's some things that have to be, taken away. Like you have to die. We'll talk about that another time. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
What he's saying is you have to lose yourself to gain Christ.
Yeah.
Period.
Pretty much. Thank you.
Exclamation point.
And so, yeah, the points where you have to lose your life in order to live, you have to lose your identity that's rooted in the world and inherit the identity that you have in Christ. And then you have to lose some of the things that you may want, because as you continue to walk with Christ, the things that you want and desire are going to, naturally change.
Yeah.
And then the verdict at the end was the new creation life is better because, if more people in the world were compassionate, loving, forgiving, peacemakers and all that stuff, the world would be a better place. But the point that I'm talking about specifically is you have to lose your identity that's rooted in the world in order to inherit the identity that you have that's rooted in Christ. And one of the things that I mentioned in that point was about, me being single and how I used to kind of find my identity in the fact that, man, when I get married, I'm going to be like the greatest thing ever. It was almost like I'm always going to feel like I'm lacking something or I'm less of a person because I haven't reached that yet. Because obviously marriage, you learn a lot about yourself and you grow as a person. But while you're single, if you're constantly bashing yourself and degrading yourself, because you're not at that point, and your identity is in that instead of, where you are, that's where it can get messed up.
Yeah.
And so the reason I was acting all crazy and everything is because I was like, that's what I was talking about. And one of the things I talked about was how I've kind of grown to the point where I'm no longer cursing being single because like you were saying, getting married too fast, a lot of people aren't necessarily ready for that. But if I were to get married last year, it would have been a mess. But the amount of growth that God has allowed me to do while being single, having a lot of time to be able to grow, having a lot of time to study, watching people who are, in that position who are doing it well and everything, the longer I'm single and growing, the better that the marriage is going to be, whenever that time comes.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a joy in being single. And Paul even talks about it in Corinthians. I had it pulled up, but I'm not going to read it. But Paul, like you were saying, Paul was single, and he actually mentions how he wishes that everybody was like him. He wishes everybody was single because it really helps him to just be full focus, full-fledged on, ministry and everything. But marriage in itself for a lot of people, is a ministry in and of itself, and it is a good thing. But yeah, like you were saying, to go back to your point, I do think that a lot of times, a lot of churches romanticize the idea of marriage so much to the point that the single members may feel like they're, I don't want to say missing out, because marriage is, from what I've heard, is a good thing.
No, I think that it's fully missing. Like they feel like they're missing out for sure.
Yeah. And I think the church overall, and when we say the church, we're not talking about this church. We're just talking about the church in general.
The church as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do a better job of just allowing people to go at their own pace. Even coming to Christ, I think we expect people to just immediately become Paul, overnight. It's not like a microwave thing. We have to, disciple, but, kind of disciple at their pace and everything. And obviously, life is a vapor. You want somebody to get to know Christ, as quick as possible. But at the same time, I think if we can, just be a people that just kind of let people figure things out and help them and just be there for them along the way, that can go a long way, especially when it comes to, dating, courting, marriage, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Hey, facts.
But yeah, man, I guess one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, man, is something that you mentioned earlier, which I can kind of relate to when it comes to, preaching. You went to East Meck High School.
Yeah.
And now you have the opportunity to teach there.
Yeah.
I guess what's like the process, how you like, because it's one thing to grow up somewhere essentially, and then it's another thing to kind of go back and be at a position there, to have some sense of ownership over the place that you grew up, essentially.
Yeah.
So I guess how have you navigated that? How does it make you feel? You know, how has that, you know, impacted you personally?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I think oh no.
It's fine. If y'all don't know, the camera just died. So what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to edit this out. Screw it. This is
Hey,
our
this is
story.
the real version, I guess.
We're just gonna roll with
It's all right.
it.
It's all right. Here, we could just roll with that. That's probably what we should have done to begin with. Just get the hell out. But
man, we'll
yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right.
We'll do
We're
it like
good.
this. We'll do it like this.
So that's funny. I think that I think going back to East Mech, the way that you remember things when you were growing up is not how they really were.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that I went to East Mech going from Garinger, which was a very low income school, and thought that East Mech was going to be a complete 180. That any problems that I had at Garinger were going to be automatically poof fixed at East Mech. And I think that at East Mech, I think that going back, you really get to see how it really is. That it's not all smoke and mirrors. Like, this is the real deal. And I think that that's good in some aspects, that you get to see the truth. Yeah. And I think that as a teenager, you don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see the administration. You don't see the bureaucracy that is education. And it's the worst part of education, but that's a part of education. Yeah. And so I think that it's been great to pour into the community. That I loved East Mech, and I do love East Mech, and obviously I love Garinger too. And I think that a lot of people, when I say Garinger, people are like, oh, like they automatically have this judgment. But I have to tell them, like, I absolutely loved my time there. Like, some of the kids that I had are some of my favorite kids that I've ever had. And so, like, I love Garinger, but I also love East Mech, and to pour into the community that built me, or a version of me, is amazing. And I think that it's been really cool to see, and I like to see the positive feedback that I've got from people. Like, I'm right beside, and it's kind of crazy, and for a while it took me a while to get used to it. Like, I'm literally right beside next door neighbors with the guy who got me into education.
Wow.
And so for me to be talking to him, and for him to have such positive feedback that I'm doing a great job, and that I'm doing this, and this, like literally last week I teach this new course. It's called Economics and Personal Finance. And he teaches PPS, which is personal professional skills. Yeah. And sometimes they overlap. And so he was talking about insurance, and I love and we talked about it on the last podcast that I did. Like, I love the creativity that teaching allows me of, whether it's throwing paper balls at each other in a battle simulation, or whether it's, I've created in this like course, I've created a whole class economy. I have paper money that I'll have to show you one day. I have paper money. I have it all. And I try to make things as creative as possible. Yep. But in doing that, last semester, I created a insurance simulation. And it was like a thing of scenarios, and you had to pick a plan and stuff like that. But I showed it to him, and he fell in love with it. And so he actually ended up using it for all of his classes. And so, like, for me to create something that the person who I held in such high regard, it's held in such high regard for him to use, it was a very special thing for me. But on the flip side of that, and Mr. Statham, who I'm talking about, he's a fantastic human being. But you also get to see that, like, these teachers, not only is the school not quite the same as you knew it, but also these teachers are human beings just like the rest of us. They have flaws. They have problems just like everybody else does. And so I think that you get the truth and you get the real deal as a teacher in comparison to when you were a student. And sometimes that crushes people of that, you don't want to meet your idols. And to be honest with you, like, I obviously, like, Mr. Statham wasn't like an idol in terms of the religious term, but like somebody who I looked up to. And like, you always got to worry about, like, if you meet them, in actuality, they were putting on a mask, they were putting on a facade, but in actuality, they were like not a very nice human being. So like, but that hasn't been the case. But for some people, it has. Like, I've met some teachers that I had in the past who don't remember me at all. Like, there's a guy that me and him went to school together. His name's TJ. He's a biology teacher there. And the French teacher who had both of us goes up to him and is like, "Hey, my former student." And he just keeps walking from me. And I guess I didn't make that good of an impact on him. But no, it's just always kind of weird. It's kind of a strange thing going back. Even now, like, talking to some teachers that I had in the past, like, you get nervous still. And it's like, when you're not, they're here and I'm here, and now we're both here, it's a strange feeling because to a certain extent, I still have that hierarchy mentality when in actuality we're colleagues now. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, and that the reason I was asking that was because I just
want to teach at Cata?
No. But I just wanted to see how you were navigating that, because it's kind of been well for me. We both grew up here at East Baptist, now East City Church, and now being kind of in a leadership position within the church. It's kind of this weird feeling because, and something I always say is, a lot of the people at the church, they've been Christians for even longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this weird place where, I'm in a leadership position at the church, but there's still a sense of, but they know more than me.
Yeah. Do you get this, like, and I always ask myself this, and I ask other people this, like, do you get a sense of nostalgia? Like, I really, and I don't know if I'm weird or whatever, but I don't get a ton of nostalgia. Like, when I walk into East, now obviously I was talking about, like, for a little while, I did feel that nostalgia, but like now it's kind of like it's a job. And like, obviously a church is a different, but like even coming in here, and I haven't been here in a little while, like, it's not like, oh, like, sometimes I think about it and sometimes I see it, like, especially when we go back to the old youth room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, I don't get a ton of like nostalgia a whole lot.
Yeah. I don't really feel that. I think part of the reason is because, I think part of the reason is because just being here, my entire life, it's just, this is all I've ever really known. So there was nothing to really be nostalgic about.
Yeah.
But I guess it's when I think about, when we were younger in the youth group and kind of like I feel more nostalgia with the younger group and how we've all kind of grown up and kind of branched off, taking our own paths, more so than feeling nostalgia about kind of like the church aspect of it. So yeah, that's really that. But yeah, there's not really too much nostalgia, I guess.
And I think that, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think that one of the hardest parts about leaving East and about leaving Garinger is that I held this picture, and it kind of goes against what I just said, but like I held this picture in such a fondness of the way things were. And like, I think that the problem with that is, and I felt the same at leaving East, and I felt the same way at leaving Garinger, is what I loved isn't the same thing that it is now. Like, I loved East when I was growing up and when I was a teenager and doing youth group and doing all these things. And even when we were doing like the young adult ministry and stuff like that. But like the people that I grew up with and the stuff that I loved isn't quite the same as it was. And so I think that like the hardest part of letting go is letting go of like admitting that what I loved isn't the same thing as it was anymore. Like I looked at a picture or looked at a video I went through, this actually happened like 3-4 days ago I went through my liked videos on YouTube. I was like, I don't even remember what I liked like half the time, but it was like a Garinger 2020, like when COVID hit, like we sent out like a video of a montage of all the staff sent something out. And it was like a one big clip of all of us were in there. And like, I felt so nostalgic because it was like, oh, I remember that person. I love that person. I love that person. I love that person. But 95% of those people that were on that video aren't at Garinger anymore. And so the place that I had grown to love wasn't the same place that it was still. And obviously that's the hard part of growing up. And that's the hard part of moving on is that things do evolve and things do change. And we do grow in institutions, but grow personally. But it's always hard kind of moving out of that phase. Like, I think that East Mech held such a special place in my heart. And now that I'm teaching there, it obviously still holds a super big place in my heart, but it's not quite the same as it was that I remember it even last year because I held it in such high esteem because to a high schooler, it was such high esteem. Whereas now it's like, don't get me wrong, it's great, but like it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll submit this to you and then we can close out. You know, and this is just me.
Are you pitching for me to come back to the church?
No. I'm talking about you at East Mech.
Okay.
And like I said, this is just I'm just submitting this to you. All right. Maybe the reason that you're there is to keep that old East Mech way alive.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's just where my mind went. But
yeah, I mean, it is interesting though because you see, like, not only do you see staff members, but like I talked to you like TJ, who like we grew up together, and now we're back at the same place that we knew each other at. Like there's a girl named Devin Jones who she's like a bio teacher as well, and we graduated together. And so like for so many East Mech alums to come back and people that I actually knew to come back and teach there, like it's definitely indicative of like the environment, and I love the environment to a certain extent. The like it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like you can truly tell that the administration, like a lot of the teachers love East Mech. And like, well, like Mr. Parker, who's the principal over there, eat, breathes, and sweat East Mech. And like, I think that kind of positivity and love for something is contagious.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But yeah, this was a really good conversation, bro.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
but have you seen the Jason Kelsey Jason Kelsey retirement speech?
I didn't see the speech.
Dude, you need to, because the passion that he held, and I'll bring it back to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like what he has, the love and the passion that he has for football is what I strive for in teaching. And I hope that everyone, and if you haven't, and I'm talking to you in that camera over there, like if not that one, because that one's gone. But like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, because the love and the joy and the passion that he has, I think is truly like we need to strive for,
Yeah.
whether it be as Christians and strive for that same passion for advancing the kingdom and for God, or whether it's for teaching or engineering or this podcast or whatever it is. Like I think that people can truly like learn from that passion and find we got to find passions. And I think that a lot of times people don't want to find passions because they're worried that it's going to at some point disappoint them. But I would rather find a passion that I absolutely love and be disappointed 5 years down the road than never to have that passion at all.
Yeah.
That was deep. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Wrap it up.
It was, man. And, I'll leave off on this. And I'll leave off on this because if we're going to keep going for 10 hours.
Oh, 100%.
We're
at 1 hour and 53 minutes.
I think this is the longest episode.
Yep. I knew when we were about an hour 30, I was like, we might be breaking records here. We might be breaking reclassified UR story. Put them all together. We ain't going to beat that record.
Yeah, but with the passion thing, I definitely agree, man. I think that I think if you're passionate and understand that it's going to come in waves too. There's going to be some hard times as well. But as long as you're passionate about something, when those waves come, that'll allow you to be able to get through them. Because if you're truly passionate about something, regardless of the highs or the lows, that passion is going to, pull you towards that. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely agree, man. But thank you for being here, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you for making time. Like I always used to say, thank you for gracing this platform with your presence.
What? Okay.
I think I said that our last episode. I don't remember. I'll have to go listen to it again. But yeah, bro, I appreciate you as always. And this isn't like, oh, we're forcing it for the camera. We could have this conversation off camera.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, this interaction would be the exact same whether we're on the camera or off the camera.
Yeah.
Like, there is no making this up. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. I think that it's been, I always love coming on. Always, like I said at the very beginning, I love these deep conversations. So whether it be about love, which was not the direction that I thought we were going to go down today, but whether it's about love or teaching or just life and Christianity or whatever it is, it's always a pleasure. And hey, if you ever need a guest speaker, hopefully it's not an hour and 55 minutes again, but hey, I'm always down. I'm literally right next door. So I literally went out the parking lot today, took a right, took another right, and I was right here. So it literally took me 2 minutes to get out to get here. So, but yeah, man, I love being on the show. I appreciate you. You're doing great things, man. And I've told you this before, and I can't say it enough. I'm just so proud of you, proud of the man that you've become, and I can't wait to see that evolution that you become. I think that as time goes on, you'll become even more confident. And Buddy won't just be Gabe, I'm calling it all the way back to the beginning. Buddy won't be Gabe. We might see Philip, because your middle name Philip. I don't know, but
Gabriel.
Gabriel. Yeah. We'll just call him JR for short. Gabriel Hoff Jr. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on the show for real.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And anybody who's listening, I hope you had your notepad, your pencils, everything out, taking notes, because there were some gems.
And hopefully on your notepad you have that Gabe single. And the DMs are open for Gabe. What's shameless plug? What's the Instagram?
The Reclassified Ministries.
What's it on TikTok?
The Reclassified 316.
The Reclassified 316.
Yeah.
And what is it? Do we have a Facebook?
Facebook is just my name, Gabriel Hoff Jr. Gabriel Hoff Jr.
Okay.
Make sure not to go to my dad, because that man is married. He's taken.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, but again, I appreciate you for being on here, man. As always, if you have anybody who that would want to be on, let them know. I can talk to anybody, from any walk in life. That's what we're about here. So yeah, I appreciate you again. for everybody who's listening, if you made it this far, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us get into that algorithm. That'll be greatly appreciated. If you're listening on a streaming platform, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you follow, leave a rating, leave a review. Just say what you thought about the episode, what you think about the podcast as a whole. If you have any ideas of things that you would like me to talk about or, topics to touch on, make sure you go ahead and link those as well. I want this to be a community where everybody's involved, and I want to speak about, I would love to speak about what y'all want to hear about. So, and even if I don't know, we can struggle through it together, figuring it out. So I appreciate y'all for listening. Also, make sure to check out The Reclassified. That's my blog, thereclassified.com. That's things that I post on there where the Lord has placed in my heart to share. And just, kind of a writing version of the Reclassified Room episodes that I do. So I think that's everything.
Oh, hold on. You said, I remember this, and I had a grievance. You said you were going to plug my podcast last time, and we never did. Oh. So shout out to my podcast called I Can't Deal With This Podcast. It's me and two other buddies. It's a very 180 from what Buddy does. It's about sports, and we're just idiots on there. So if you want to check it out, please check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. I do remember taking away of I literally was like, damn, man. He said he was going to shout us out, and then he never did. But I'm just messing with you, buddy. I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. And I'll make sure to link it in the description, the I Can't Deal With This podcast. I'll even put a picture of it right here. I'm doing this so I remember to do it.
Honestly, so fun fact, I don't know if people know this, but Buddy was one of the founding members of the I Can't Deal With This podcast.
Yeah.
So Buddy was on the first 30 or 40 episodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, crazy.
If y'all want to hear something funny, scroll all the way to
no.
Scroll all the way to the first episode. It's the funniest.
Dude, we sang the final countdown, and it was looking back on it was the worst decision of my life. If there was a regret, that one's it. I could just imagine people being like, "What the hell is happening?" Right now? But
yeah, but I appreciate you once again for being on here, man. I appreciate all of y'all for listening, and we will see y'all next time. Peace out.
Peace.
I feel alone, my Abba. Here on this road, my Abba. A long way from home I've traveled. Lord, I just need your light. Where have I gone, my Father? I sing the song.